Welcome to the Living Simpler podcast. I'm Amy, and I help high-achieving women simplify their lives, restore their energy, and design a life that aligns with their values without burning themselves out in the process. If you've ever thought, I should be grateful for what I've built, but secretly feel like you're crumbling under the weight of your life or business, this episode is for you. Today, we're talking about burnout. Why it's more than just being tired, what it's really costing you, and why it's not only okay to change, it might actually save your health, your business, and your future. You know, I used to think burnout was just what happened when you worked too hard for too long. Like it was this badge of honor that came with being ambitious and driven. But what I've learned, both through my own experience and working with hundreds of women, is that burnout is so much more complex and so much more dangerous than we've been led to believe. Let me start by asking you something. How often do you find yourself saying, I'm fine, I'm just tired? Or maybe you catch yourself thinking, if I can just get through this busy season, then I'll slow down. Sound familiar? Yeah, I thought so, because that's exactly what I used to tell myself, right up until my body literally forced me to stop. What burnout really is and what it's not. Here's what most of us don't realize about burnout. It's not just exhaustion. It's not something you can fix with a weekend getaway or a few good nights of sleep. Burnout is actually a chronic stress response that rewires your brain and absolutely wrecks your body. The World Health Organization now classifies burnout as an occupational phenomenon. We're talking about a state of emotional, physical, and mental depletion that's caused by prolonged stress, overwork, and lack of recovery. And here's the thing that really worries me. Over 77% of women in leadership roles report experiencing burnout at least weekly. Weekly! That's not normal, even though it's become common. Now, burnout is especially prevalent in high-performing women who are used to pushing through and putting others first. Does that sound like anyone you know? Because it definitely described me for way too many years. Before I finally found the courage to leave my high-powered finance career, I had gained almost 50 pounds, and I wasn't drinking a lot socially, but I was drinking way too much wine on a Sunday night, just trying to numb the stress and lack of motivation for what I was doing with my life. What's really happening when you're burned out is that burnout affects three major systems in your body. First, your brain. When you're chronically stressed, cortisol literally hijacks your prefrontal cortex, which is your logical decision-making center. That's why when you're burned out, you might feel like you can't think clearly or make even simple decisions. Second, your hormones get completely out of whack. High cortisol suppresses progesterone, disrupts thyroid function, and raises insulin. This is why so many of us deal with irregular periods, weight gain, brain fog, and that feeling like our metabolism just stopped working. And third, your nervous system gets stuck in fight or flight mode. You become unable to fully relax, even when you have the opportunity. You know that feeling when you're exhausted but you can't fall asleep? Or when you finally have a free afternoon but you feel anxious doing nothing? That's your nervous system stuck in overdrive. The real physical symptoms of burnout. I want to be really clear about something. Burnout is not just in your head. It's in your cells, your hormones, and your nervous system. According to the American Psychological Association, 51% of women say stress affects their physical health, and the symptoms are real and they're serious. Some of the most common burnout symptoms include chronic fatigue that doesn't improve with rest, insomnia, or disrupted sleep patterns, anxiety that seems to come out of nowhere, brain fog and forgetfulness, hormonal imbalances like PMS, hot flashes, or low libido, weight gain, especially around your midsection, and blood sugar instability and inflammation. But here's what really concerns me, because it has become me and is what started this entire journey for me. Over time, chronic stress and burnout increase your risk of autoimmune disease, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, which is still the #1 killer of women, and mental health disorders like depression and anxiety. My own story, I had what most people would call success, but my body was literally breaking down. First at 29 when I had a stroke, and then again at 47 when my health challenges reappeared, and 48 when my health completely fell apart. My wake-up call wasn't subtle. It was an ICU bed on my birthday. That's what burnout looks like when you don't listen to the whispers. I remember lying in that hospital bed thinking, how did I get here? I was doing everything I thought I was supposed to do. I was building a successful business, taking care of everyone around me, pushing through when things got tough. But somewhere along the way, I had completely lost sight of my own well-being. The doctors kept telling me I was fine, that my symptoms were normal, that this was just what happened when you got older. But I knew something was deeply wrong. It wasn't until I started working with functional medicine practitioners that I realized my body wasn't betraying me. It was communicating with me. And what it was saying was, we can't keep going like this. The hidden financial cost of ignoring burnout. Now let's talk about something that might surprise you. Burnout doesn't just cost you energy and health. It costs you money, productivity, and creativity too. A recent Gallup report found some pretty staggering statistics. Burned out employees are 63% more likely to take sick days. They're 2.6 times more likely to be actively seeking a different job, and they are 23% more likely to visit the ER. In my case, after my $5,000 in out-of-pocket costs for the hospital stay, despite having good insurance, in order for my brain to recover, I was taking 2-hour naps every single day of the week. I stopped prospecting for clients in my business, and I only serviced any clients who came to me from what was already in place. I was so lucky that my specialty had always been systems and technology. It is what kept my business afloat when I wasn't able to. The CDC estimates that chronic stress and burnout contribute to $300 billion annually in healthcare costs and lost productivity. But for those of us who are entrepreneurs or business owners, the cost shows up in different ways. Burnout shows up as procrastination and avoidance. You know those projects you keep putting off? That content you should be creating? Those sales calls you keep avoiding? That's often burnout talking. It also shows up as low visibility. When you're burned out, you tend to hide. You don't show up on social media. You don't network. You don't put yourself out there because you just don't have the energy. Then there's the people-pleasing and over-delivering. When you're burned out, you often try to compensate by giving more and more, which just depletes you further. And here's the thing. If your energy is low, your leadership, creativity, and sales likely are too. I see this with my clients all the time. They come to me and they're like, I don't understand why my business isn't growing. I'm working harder than ever. But when we dig deeper, we realize they're operating from such a depleted state that they're not showing up with the energy and clarity that actually attracts clients and opportunities. When I was in my own burnout, I remember having days where I would sit at my computer for hours but accomplish almost nothing. I was busy, but I wasn't productive. After my hospitalization, I was sitting in my mom's living room trying to read a 58-page commercial lease, something that was a foundational piece of my job. Despite helping negotiate over 150 leases in the past, it was like I was trying to read a completely different language. I was moving, but I wasn't making progress. And that's incredibly expensive, both financially and emotionally. Why it's okay and necessary to change. You know what keeps most of us stuck in burnout? Fear. Fear of change. Fear of letting people down. Fear of wasting the time, money, or energy we've already spent. Fear of starting over or admitting that something we've built isn't working. When I gave my TED Talk in 2021, I opened with one of my favorite quotes from Tony Robbins. People change when the fear of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change. I get it. I really do. There's this thing called the sunk cost fallacy, where we keep investing in something that isn't working because we've already put so much into it. But here's what I want you to understand. The real risk isn't in changing. The real risk is in staying in something that is actively harming your health. Science actually backs this up. Your brain is neuroplastic, which means it can rewire and recover. But only when you remove the chronic stressors and rebuild safety and rhythm into your daily life. Your mitochondria, which are your body's energy producers, literally stop working properly when they're exposed to chronic stress. I want you to hear this, and I want you to really let it sink in. You are not flaky, you are not crazy, and you are not broken. You are evolving, and it's okay to outgrow what once worked. I think one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is that we should be grateful for what we have, so we shouldn't want anything different. But gratitude and desire for change aren't mutually exclusive. You can be grateful for where you are and still recognize that it's time for something different. When I was in my burnout, I felt so guilty about wanting to change things. I was part of a successful business. I had clients who depended on me. I had a reputation and responsibilities, but I was miserable, and I felt like I couldn't say that out loud because it seemed ungrateful. It was like that moment in The Devil Wears Prada where Stanley Tucci tells Anne Hathaway, "A million girls would kill for this job." But here's what I learned. When you're operating from burnout, you're not serving anyone well. Not your clients, not your family, not yourself. You're giving from an empty cup, and that's not sustainable. It's not serving anyone in the long run. Change isn't just okay. Sometimes it's necessary for survival, and there's nothing selfish about prioritizing your health and well-being. In fact, it's one of the most generous things you can do because it allows you to show up as the best version of yourself for the people who matter most to you. How to start building a life you love. So how do you start rebuilding? How do you move from burnout to a life that actually feels sustainable and aligned? This isn't about blowing up your life. It's about realigning it. And there's actually a science-backed way to do this. Step 1, track energy, not time. Most of us are obsessed with time management, but what we really need is energy management. I want you to keep a 7-day energy journal. Notice what drains you versus what fuels you. Rate activities on a 1 to 10 energy scale. You might discover that certain meetings consistently drain you, or that you have more energy in the morning than the afternoon, or that certain types of work light you up while others feel like drudgery. This information is gold because it helps you start making decisions based on how things actually affect your energy, rather than how you think they should affect your energy. For me, a year after my hospitalization, I know that I am my best in the morning, and if I know that I need to think at night, I must schedule time in my afternoon for a nap. Step 2, re-regulate your nervous system. When you're burned out, your nervous system is stuck in fight or flight mode. You have to actively work to re-regulate it. This isn't woo-woo stuff. This is neuroscience. Start with simple breathing exercises like the 4-7-8 technique. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 7, exhale for 8. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest mode. Add in gentle movement like walking or yoga. Your body needs to move to process stress hormones, but intense exercise can actually add to your stress load when you're already depleted. Prioritize morning sunlight and sleep hygiene. Your circadian rhythms are probably completely disrupted, and light exposure helps reset them. And here's a big one. Unplug from devices for at least 1 hour per day. The constant stimulation from screens keeps your nervous system activated even when you think you're relaxing. Step 3, identify what needs to change. This is where you get honest with yourself. Ask yourself, if I could start fresh, what would I rebuild differently? Don't start with how you're going to change it. Start with what you actually crave. Maybe you crave more flexibility in your schedule. Maybe you crave deeper relationships. Maybe you crave work that feels more meaningful. Maybe you crave time in nature or time to be creative. Don't judge these desires. Listen to them. As I've been going through this myself, I have felt this pull to travel, to live a simpler life with less stuff, less bills, and less responsibility. I am actively auditing my life and making huge changes. Step 4, redefine success. This is huge. Most of us are measuring success by external metrics. How much money are we making? How busy are we? How does our house or car compare to our neighbors? What purse are we carrying? How much are we producing? But what if we redefine success as alignment, wellness, and freedom? Instead of asking, how much can I produce? Try asking, how aligned, well, and free do I feel? For me, my success is measured by my level of freedom. Is my house paid for every month without issues? Can I travel when I want, both financially and with the ability to leave my business, and things still happen without me? Can I turn my phone off at night and on weekends and not feel guilty? For years, I judged my success by my things, and I wore my busyness like a badge of honor. That is no longer even close to my version of success today. My health and my free time are the two things that I protect the most today. They, along with my family, are the things that make up success for me in 2025. Step 5, ask for support. Here's something I've noticed about high-achieving women. We often isolate when we're struggling. We think we should be able to figure it out on our own. We don't want to burden anyone. We don't want to appear weak or like we don't have it all together. But isolation makes burnout worse. You need support. Start with one person you trust, whether it's a coach, a friend, or your partner, and say, I don't feel like myself lately. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be willing to admit that you need help. I remember when I first started talking about my burnout, I was so afraid people would judge me or think I couldn't handle my success. But what actually happened was that people started sharing their own stories. I realized I wasn't alone, and that connection was healing in itself. Today, I have a group chat with 3 other entrepreneur friends. They are my one phone call. I am the girl that needs 3 or 4 really good friends who are there, no matter what. 3 action steps you can take today. I don't want you to leave this episode feeling overwhelmed or like you have to change everything at once. Healing from burnout is a process, not a destination. But here are 3 simple things you can do today to start moving in the right direction. First, block 30 minutes of white space this week. No tech, no plans, just presence. I know this might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to constantly being busy. But this is practice for being rather than doing. Your nervous system needs this space to start shifting out of fight or flight mode. Second, journal on this prompt. What part of my life feels the most out of alignment, and what might it look like to change it? Don't overthink this. Just write whatever comes up. Sometimes our intuition knows what needs to change before our logical mind catches up. And third, book a conversation with someone who can support your clarity and well-being and give you strong feedback. This might be a coach, a therapist, a trusted friend, or a mentor. The key is that it's someone who can see you clearly and isn't invested in keeping you where you are. When I left finance in 2010 to open my first fitness studio, people thought I was nuts. How on earth could I leave a 6-figure job to start over in something I knew nothing about? Just a couple of years later, I was making more than my boss, and I was doing something I truly loved. Today, one of my favorite parts of my job is helping women leave corporate to launch fitness studios or wellness businesses. They have often had tremendous levels of success, but woke up one morning and just wondered if this was as good as it would get for them. And today, as I'm recording this episode, I'm thinking about all the women who are listening right now who feel like they're drowning in their own success, who feel guilty for wanting something different, who are wondering if they're crazy for feeling like something has to change. I want you to know that you're not crazy. Your body and your intuition are giving you important information. And it's okay to listen to that information, even if it means making changes that other people don't understand. Your health is not negotiable. Your well-being is not a luxury. And your desire for a life that feels aligned and sustainable is not selfish. It's necessary. If you're ready to start this journey, if you're ready to move from burnout to a life that actually feels good, I'm here to support you. You can find more resources at livingsimpler.com. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with a woman who needs to hear this message. Remember, you don't have to choose between success and well-being. You can have both. But it starts with being willing to do things differently than you've been doing them. And that's not just okay. Sometimes it's the most important thing you can do. Thanks for listening to the Living Simpler podcast. Your health is your wealth. Nothing else matters without it. I'll see you next week.